I'm joined by some great individuals here that represent the restaurant industry. I'm going to let them all introduce themselves. And again, I'm Sean McGuinness. I'm the business director, hospitality director at Sargenti Architects. And hand it off over here to Chris.
Hi, Chris Tarrant, Chief Development Officer of Sweetgreen.
Hi, nice to meet you all. Abe Nasrallah. I'm VP of Development at Wonder.
I'm Tiffany Vassos, SVP of Design and Construction at Dave's Hot Chicken.
How you doing? I'm Jim Fay, lead restaurant development for Brinker International.
So there's a ton to talk about. There's a lot we can touch on, and we only have 50 minutes, and Michael said we have to be off stage by then. So I'm just gonna kick it off, and I do have a list. We're gonna start with just real estate. It's a pain that we all go through. We all see, even from the architectural side. And I'm gonna pick on a couple folks here, so I gotta like read my notes here. I'll start with Chris in terms of what's going on in the real estate industry in terms of competitiveness.
Well, I think you're seeing just tightening of inventory like nationwide. I think you've seen it throughout North America, and it just really has prompted us and other brands to be really focused on the market strategy. So the front end work, market planning, market strategy, store density, figuring out what delivery radius and all that stuff, so you can figure out what your actual white space is and things like that. And then being really proactive. So got to close fast. You need to know where to fish, and you need to be really, really proactive, because everybody, no secret, right? The biggest secret is not a secret, which is great real estate has an incredibly short shelf life. And as the competitive segment goes, our segment's no different. We've seen a number of players enter the space, and we got to stay a step ahead. We're a growth company, so that's what we're seeing. Like, just trying to be better and stay on your front foot all the time.
Jim, I'll throw it down to the other end there in terms of growth and strategy.
Yeah, so we see the inventory issue as well. It's a lot of competition, right? So a lot of people out there looking for the same size site that we do for a Chili's. On the Maggiano side, that's a lot larger building, so that's 12,000 square feet. So finding 12,000 square feet or 2.5 acres is a challenge. We found that we've got to be really flexible with landlords and developers, right? So they're under a lot of pressure too from their finance side. So we got to be flexible in our lease terms, our rent, how quickly we can go to lease, because that's really critical for them. I find that on the search side, we're leaning heavily into our data analytics. So the typical demographic stuff from incomes and population and things like that, but all the way up to mobile intercept data, so that we can start to see where our gaps are in the markets, and also better estimate sales transfer, what we used to call cannibalization, right? So you got to stay on top of that.
How are the landlords treating you all? Are they supporting you? Are they helping you out? They helping you through the process?
Wow, that's a loaded early question. That's a good one
We'll get to
early.
tariffs
That's a
next.
good one. That's a good one early.
It gets
I would say, look, there's a landlord side and a tenant side of this business. There's always been that. I would say that the need for true partnership, there's always been this relationship, and I would say that our relationship with our landlords is really good. The tough discussions now are how quickly we get to the best deal. In other words, because of the perishability of real estate, we need to be able to assess the best true deal that we can knows the second best answer in real estate. So we really want to just get to the crux of the best deal. And I would say that the operating margins in the restaurants and everything are getting thinner and everything else. So we really need the partnership. So whether that's the full work letter and the TI package and the best rent deal, and we're starting to get to that level. So the relationship is good, but what we really do need partnership, because we are not going to be able to pass off price to the consumers and things like that. So margin wise and everything else. But we also understand, the landlord side of the business and where they're getting pressured. But are they treating us well? Sure, absolutely, absolutely. But again, it's a partnership, and we understand that there's two sides of the equation, and we're just trying to thread the needle with the best deal possible. There's a bunch of benefits to getting to the best deal as quickly as possible that we can assess and say no or yes, and then we can get further upstream in permitting. It's a downstream effect and helps the whole process. But perfect. Yeah.
Tiffany, Abe, kind of a skew on the question. With real estate being so challenging to come about, how are you experimenting with different formats to fit the space?
Wanna go
So
first?
yeah, sure. So for us, I mean, obviously we're in a sweet spot. I mean, we're looking at about 2,600 square feet. There's a lot of brands out there that are doing that. For us, we're pretty flexible in going into tenant improvement locations, taking over, legacy brands. Sorry for that, but taking over some of, the existing restaurant concepts and trying to capitalize on whatever may be part of that location, whether it be like walk-ins or refrigeration and things like that. So, we try to do that, but I think our biggest thing is that we're trying to create long-standing relationships with a lot of the big landlords that are out there, and we're trying to get to the top people so that we can get great exterior design. That's one of the things that we're trying to leverage the most, and we've been pretty successful in doing that. But it's about creating long-standing relationships with a lot of these bigger landlords. Obviously, we still work with a lot of the smaller ones too, but those big ones bring deals to us. They bring a lot of real estate to us. So luckily we're kind of in a different spot when it comes to that a little bit.
And I think for us at Wonder, we've created quite a few size prototypes, so it allows us to kind of flex up and down based on the needs and availability that exist kind of in every market and submarket. So we can build our kind of typical unit is in around 3,000 square feet, but I can build a 2,500 square foot unit and I can build a 5,000 square foot unit. And as long as we kind of understand the economics of each site, we're able to kind of flex our prototype to kind of fit in the real estate that's existing. And similar to kind of everyone else here is we've gone and we do a lot of bank deals, we do a lot of kind of old retail deals that are closing down, and we're able to kind of split it to suit our needs.
I had just had the opportunity to visit with Abe in New York and check out a Wonder, and I'm not sure if everyone's seen one, but I'm gonna pass you the
Sure.
clicker.
Awesome. So I'll just quickly start and just like for a bunch of folks in here, unless you live on the East Coast, specifically New York, New Jersey, you might not know what a Wonder is. So just very quickly, the way we describe Wonder is a new kind of food hall. So we're building a 3,500 square foot restaurant that has multiple brands within it. So right behind me, somewhere there, is our Hudson Square location in New York City. This is a 5,000 square foot location. This has 30 restaurants that can be served out of this location. And so it allows us the ability to kind of build in different neighborhoods, as kind of I was talking about before. And then we kind of optimize each location based on the restaurants we want to serve out of there. So most of our growth has been in New York City, northern New Jersey. We're just starting to open up sites in PA. So this actually just opened up last Thursday. This is our 42nd location in Ardmore, PA. And kind of our growth is based on kind of bringing these chefs from around the country to kind of neighborhoods all over the country. Part of our build is we have a limited front of house. So this is kind of an image of our front of house, or at least one of the images of our front of house, kind of another. It's not very large. It's somewhere in the realm of 500 to 800 square feet, depending on where we're building. The vast majority of our builds are kind of back of house. And what we've done, and I'll kind of jump to that. So our back of house build is huge. We build 3,000 square foot kitchens. And one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves in is we build very flexible kitchens. So kind of one of the reasons I like to show this picture is if you kind of notice on the ceiling, all of our power from our restaurants come from the ceiling down. And so that gives us the flexibility to manipulate the kitchen, change the kitchen as we're bringing in different restaurants or as we're changing kind of the equipment that we're using or the general layout. So it's a very, very flexible model that allows us to, as kind of I was talking about before, build in like different areas and different square feet.
Perfect, thank you.
Of course.
Click one more. It's a good segue when you look at that. And just a quick little side story. I was interested to find out that Wonder started as a food truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So little symbiotic relationship with Dave's Hot Chicken starting in a parking lot. So, yeah. We all have to come from somewhere. So, that was a good slide to transition into my favorite topic in the restaurant industry, robotics and automation. I'm a restaurant geek. I love this stuff. And there is a balance between that. You have to balance the tech with the human experience. And I'll throw it over to Jim because we had a good conversation about this a few weeks back about the need or necessity of technology in the space versus having that human interaction.
I think technology can be intoxicating, right? You're chasing a lot of things. I would say 3 years ago, we were chasing everything from robotic hostesses to drone deliveries to clamshells and all sorts of new automation. And I would tell you that we kind of lost focus on some of the basics of our business. So we had a new CEO come in, Kevin Hockman, and he kind of took a step back and said, listen, you need to forget the drones, forget the robots, forget the ghost kitchens, forget all the other things you're working on, and let's focus on the 4 basics, right? Which is food and beverage, the hospitality experience, the atmosphere, and the team member, right? And so we went through a lot of simplification and stuff. Now, I would tell you that we still leverage what I would call operational intelligence, right? So we're going out to different companies to make sure that we're operating as efficiently as possible and getting the most out of our equipment, getting the right equipment in, the right amount of equipment. I would tell you at Maggiano's, we had way too many burners. We thought saute cooks could operate 8 burners and found out that 4 is about as many as they can operate. So we cut that in half as an example, right? And so we got smarter about that. I think it's really important to be ready for the next step in data for us. What we want to do is make sure we have the right basics to start to plug in as technology becomes more mainstream. We don't want to be on the cutting edge. We're here to sell food and experience, not technology.
Great. I'm going to throw it over to Chris, especially talking about Infinite Kitchen and the role of technology in the space.
Right, right. So the idea behind the Infinite Kitchen is really like the 2 major, besides occupancy, cost of goods and labor are the 2 pressures that aren't going away in really any business. So we really targeted that. We fully, I totally agree with Jim that like the human connection, personalized service will never go away. So it's how you utilize automation kind of in the background, which is kind of ironic because our Infinite Kitchen's right staring you in the face. But the finishing station, et cetera, is where we can maintain that piece. So nothing's really changed in our model. We still scratch cook daily. The Infinite Kitchen allows us some labor savings. We're booking, we're targeting to book in like 600 to 700 points of basis points of labor saving in that. And the kitchen has done a much better job of portioning. It's capable of 230 bowls every 30 minutes at a 96% accuracy rate. So there's benefits to it, and we're still able to maintain the human connection at the finishing station, the handoff, and everything else. We do have some kiosk ordering. I would tell you that we've had 0 blowback on that, but we don't have it fully utilized either. We have a concierge position that helps people that are not as comfortable or don't find it intuitive. But I think Jim's point also about chasing things is important because the restaurant business is still about connection and human connection. So we're doing our best to balance that and still trying to find some savings and efficiency in the model. I do think technology in the back of house is more beneficial in the restaurant business, and this we kind of walk a line on both of those. So it's been very we've got about 12 of them operating right now in the States. So we'll be probably have 25 by the end of the year.
It's a little different for us for Dave's because we have a very young clientele. And so in our business, the kiosks have been great. But we do kind of do the concierge type of experience where it's not exactly like you're just walking in and having a screen directly in front of your face. We want to have that team member interaction. So we've actually been pretty creative with like creating openings from the counter area so that there's easy access if somebody needs help. But because our clientele is a little bit younger, sometimes they don't want to have a conversation and order. But they still want the experience with like, the design and the loud music and having people that are, calling your name and that kind of stuff. But they don't necessarily want to have a conversation during the ordering process. But it's both. I mean, we cater to every age, but we do see that the younger people are tending to go to the kiosks a lot more frequently.
Abe, we talked a little on site in New York about automation, robotics in back of house, and I was just impressed with really the labor model. I mean, it's nearly fine dining menus
Yeah.
that anyone can cook.
Yeah. So the way that and part of it has to do with our design, but Wonder, we are vertically integrated kind of up and down. So we own the production, we own all the tech, and we obviously own the restaurants and the labor model inside of it. And so all of that ties together to ensure that by the time it's somebody orders a Bobby Flay steak and we're making it for you, it is exactly as it needs to be. Our KDS screens are all like built in-house, and so we essentially are telling our cooks inside of our kitchens exactly how long to fire that steak, exactly when to pull it, when to cut it, and then also one of the beauties of Wonder is you can order what we call multi-restaurant ordering, and so you can order a Bobby Flay steak and a DeFara pizza and a royal green salad kind of all in the same basket, and so being able to cook those at different times and make sure they all kind of come out at the exact same time at the exact right temperature that's supposed to be is a really kind of a fine dance that we do. But we invest really, really heavily into the automation within like our restaurants. So I think you saw it at our Hudson Square restaurant. We have conveyors that allow all of the kind of the different stations to, once they're complete with the food, it goes on a conveyor and then it's scanned. And once there's a like little QR code on the top of every like closed container. And so it's like, okay, this is a steak. And then when the salad comes, it scans and it kind of tells you where to put it. And so for our team inside the restaurant, it's a super fun process, but it's like very automated. It allows kind of our cooks to focus on the food. And then the rest of it is very simple.
Does not sound simple.
You'd be super surprised.
Pretty impressive.
It's one of those things, when we bring, our architects, we bring kind of all the different folks we work with into our kitchens before, we kind of bring them on as partners just to show them what it's like, because for us, it's a very intricate kitchen. Yeah. And so, it literally like off the street, you can follow the KDS screen and you can make a perfect steak. And it's pretty cool. But again, it's all driven by the tech. Without that, it would be absurdly complicated.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And switching notes off technology, because I know we can talk about that for years and years. I'm going to talk to Tiffany a little bit about just all of the brands here on the stage are growing extensively. Dave's Hot Chicken has franchise, international, domestic, and the numbers just keep piling of how quickly you're growing. How are you managing all that? Any tips and tricks for everybody?
Well, it's been a wild ride. I mean, luckily for us, I've been working with the same team pretty much since 2012. We all originally started with Blaze Pizza. Like I'm employee number 4 at Blaze Pizza and employee number 4 here at Dave's Hot Chicken. So, we have a really good team and a really good synergy. And I feel like we've been really successful in, working together, and now especially, knowing what not to do. So that's been pretty successful. I also feel like we're pretty lucky because we are a franchise-based concept, so we are able to grow pretty quickly. But we do bring on highly sophisticated franchise partners that have developed many other concepts. So we're not necessarily teaching people how to develop a restaurant. We're just teaching them the Dave's way. So that's, really helpful. And, we have a pretty good track record of going pretty fast. And luckily for us, a lot of, landlords and stuff like that want us right now. Mm-hmm. So we're capitalizing on that. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure everyone on this panel can add to this in terms of just growth. I mean, Jim, with the remodel program, the reimaging program, if anyone wants to share additional tips.
Yeah, so I like to say that we've got 2 mature brands, right? So Chili's, which is just turned 50, and Maggiano's, which is 35, right? It's really important to stay relevant with these brands. And so thinking about how you do that, staying aligned with your guest, right? So you can't stay relevant unless you're in tune with your guest. We do that about every 10 years on the Chili's side. We kind of rethink through that and make sure that we're aligned, make sure that we stay relevant. And it's been a testament to the 50 years that we've we've been successful. On the Maggiano side, I would say we kind of languished, right? So it really hasn't changed in 35 years, although it's about to go through a really big change. And I'll show you some of that in a little bit. But it's really important to kind of stay on top of that as you grow. So growth can be a bunch of different ways, right? You can build new units, right? We do that, but you can also build the revenues in your existing units by reimaging and operating really efficiently. So we leverage both those ends.
Great.
Yeah, I think I'll add from Wonder. So we're very new to kind of the brick and mortar world. So our first unit opened February 2023, and like I said, we opened our 42nd unit last Thursday. So it's been a wild ride, and part of how and we own, it's all kind of Wonder built and operated. So for us, it's kind of been building a great team that allows us to scale, and that team includes like folks on my team directly, but also like all of our partners we work with, like partnering with like world-class architects, world-class engineers. We have a book of GCs that we just love and are able to help us build these things as quickly as we're trying to build them. And so that's kind of been our recipe for success. And as we grow, it's kind of a symbiotic relationship between us and then the folks we work with on the other side.
I would say excuse me. The only thing I would add that is just from the sweetgreen perspective, we started urban, New York, LA, and now we're stretching into the suburbs, and we're finding a really good balance and sweet spot about what our customers want how they want to utilize us in the suburbs, and then in the urban place where we're a lot older, 17, 18 years. We're 252 restaurants deep now. What we're finding is just a really good strategic plan about how we modify our urban prints and use like we talked about earlier, the format work. How do we double down on seats in some of these urban markets, and then how do we utilize pickup only and still trying to balance off the delivery radius and things like that. So I would say that for us, finding our way in now both markets is kind of our focus.
Can I add to that a little bit too? The other thing that I feel has been a really, really important part of how we develop quickly is finding vendor partners that become an extension of you. There's so many things that you're trying to do when you're trying to build a restaurant, or you're trying to design something, or you're trying to, get a site open, that when you have a vendor partner that is an extension of you, they can actually be a really great advocate for helping you do things that you don't actually have to do. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, our equipment partners, stuff like that. I don't have to check equipment orders because I know that they know our brand just as much as we do. We often bring them in, like you're just saying, like we'll bring them in, we'll have them do a training session. They'll go for a week and learn how to be a team member at a Dave's Hot Chicken. And because of that, they know the brand really well. And it really helps us be successful because they are an extension of us.
That's good.
And that goes for signage, that goes for millwork, that goes for, everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you all need an architect.
Yes.
Is that what you All right, elephant in the room time. Everybody hear about the tariffs? So this is good. This is not just about tariffs.
How do you spell that?
Yeah, too early. So beyond just that, the challenges that we're having in the industry, construction costs, whether it's tariff driven or not, supply chain, human resources, permitting. I think that was a common topic with all four of you. Independent discussions, permitting. So for any of the expeditors in the room, there's opportunity here. But why don't we all share on what we're feeling about that?
Well, to your point about permitting, I mean, I think it's fantastic that a new industry, literally, in permit expediting has been around a long time, but now there's companies here. I think Pulley's here. I think there's a couple others in that space. Greenlight's in that space also. Like it's amazing to me that an entire extension of that older permanent expediting piece is now being refined by companies like that, because it's a big deal. I mean, it's the biggest lack of control that we've got, and once we submit, it's like anybody's guess. It's like, what's the over under on getting this back? And people say, will we ever get it back? I don't know. So, But I would say the permitting side for us and construction costs for us, and it's not so much even on, not even, on the GC side specifically. The material side is starting to level out, but the big trades and I'd be interested in what you all find as well. But it's the big three, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing subcontractors that we're really digging into with our GCs, because if they haven't got control over those, then that's the one that will upset your schedule quickest.
Mhm.
So for me, we're doing a deep dive in all of our GCs on how deep they are on the subs.
Yeah, I'll say from our end is that was kind of a big unlock for us. Is we actually have our GCs obviously hold the contract, but we have like really good partnerships with those big three, because our first few projects were kind of a mess. Our first build was literally a 6-week build, and I don't even know if I remember how much it cost, but it wasn't a pleasant number. And so as we're building, 10 and 20 and 30, and we'll have 90 by the end of the year, we had to have direct partnerships with mechanical subs and electrical subs and plumbing subs, as well as talk to their suppliers and figure out we're worried now obviously about some of the costs on like HVAC and electrical panels, and so we're taking steps to try to procure some of those today, and it was a lot of work we were doing in the last few weeks to just get them in house. We'll store them because we know what our growth plan is. And so to be a little bit ahead of that is been kind of important for us.
I like how you said that. Not an
It was not
unpleasant.
It was an unpleasant number.
Unpleasant number.
We had a few of those.
For us, I would say that after COVID, permitting was really tough, right, for everybody, right? Everybody's backed up. I'd say for the most part, it's kind of smoothed itself out a little bit and started to get back to normal. Having said that, there are always difficult places like Phoenix or anywhere in Pennsylvania, it seems like, because you're dealing with counties and states and everything.
San
It gets,
Diego, Florida.
it gets a little difficult there when you're dealing with that stuff. Construction costs, we still deal with the same stuff day in and day out, right? After COVID, a lot of the tradesmen retired. There's a shortage, particularly around the big three, and so costs have gone up. We're trying to deal with that, trying to deal with supply shortages and delays, particularly around electric switchgear. It was RTUs for a while, and that's more or less kind of calmed itself down, although we order ahead of time. So we order in bulk. We try and forecast as much as possible. We try and get ahead of things like, I mentioned Phoenix. Well, they require a special CT can, which is like a year's lead time to try and get one of those things made. So as soon as we cut a deal there, we order switchgear, right? So try and get ahead of it, things like that. It's really super important for us. Partnering with GCs is critical, right? So you've got GCs that know your building, that can give you the best price, that can be competitive. So that's important, as well as suppliers too.
The other thing that's been very helpful for us at Dave's is I'm really big on communication. I overly communicate. I send out weekly reports to every single one of our vendor partners with every single site that's been accepted. So they're seeing all the way right now, they're already seeing sites that are in 2027. So there shouldn't be any surprises when it comes to what we need, especially because we've standardized a lot of the equipment packages and things like that, so we can get ahead of it. And even bigger than that, I talk directly to our manufacturers. So I keep talking about equipment, but I don't just tell my equipment partner that these sites are coming. I go to Pitco and I go to Taylor and I go to all these different manufacturers of the actual pieces of equipment so that they know what's also coming. Mm-hmm. And
this is a follow-up question to that. Are your consultants, are your manufacturers communicating to you with tariffs coming on? What are they telling you?
They're saying, we don't know what we don't know, but be aware that there might be some changes coming in your pricing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're already starting to experience pricing increases, right? Systems, FF&E, anything that comes from China, they're starting to take price hikes already. So you got to get ahead of that. So we've ordered in bulk, even at a slightly higher rate, to try and get ahead of what might come in the future. I wish I had that crystal ball.
I know, right?
Yeah.
The crystal ball question is at the end. Save the answers for that.
I'll wait for that one. But I will just say, most of our vendors have actually been surprisingly optimistic. I am not, my default is most certainly not optimism, but theirs is, which I appreciate. And so, a lot of them have, feel this, have believe this is coming. And so they've also taken steps. And so that kind of goes back to what you were talking about, Tiffany, is like if your partners know your growth plans and know like what you're doing and they're taking like proactive steps, it kind of works for everybody.
I think that's great for all of the vendors that are here, myself included, the two-way communication. So good lesson learned. So
It's huge.
hopefully all the white badges were taken note.
Critical.
I'm going to segue into a more fun topic, design. So I'm going to look at the specific question, but I want to tee up Tiffany in your presentation. I think that's kind of just a good way to look at like what we're doing in restaurant design and innovation.
Well, first of all, who here has tried Dave's Hot Chicken?
I have.
And if you haven't tried it, have you seen one? Hopefully. All right. So design is, a major part of us here at Dave's Hot Chicken, and we really are unconventional when it comes to our approach. We want to shock the system absolutely everywhere we go, and we've been pretty successful in getting some awesome exteriors. And here's a couple of examples of some of our locations. One thing I do want to say is that if you are talking to landlords, you don't ever use the word graffiti when you're looking at our sites. You say, well, can we just put a mural on there? Or how about some great artwork? And it seems to not scare the hell out of them. So there you go. So this right here is a site that we just did in downtown Chicago. It's a pretty spectacular location. This location in particular is adjacent to a hotel. And we went and talked to the hotel and asked them if we could paint the side of their building. And there you have it. You can see our Zeus god of tenders. And what I'm talking about here is that, obviously if you build it, they will come. But for us, we're finding that the more we have exterior design on our locations, the higher our AUVs are and the more that people come. So we actually have a company by the name of Splatterhouse that they're LA-based street artists that are friends with our founders. And we've worked with them to build up a group of about 40 artists across the world now that go out to our locations and paint. So they are all trained in the Dave's way. I don't know if this is gonna work, it's fine. But basically you can see, that's a pretty spectacular billboard that we have there in downtown Chicago. So try it if you can.
Well, I mean, are there any numbers that you can share in terms of like guest traffic based on?
So what we've done, and I'll share this in just a second, but what we've done is we've gone back to all of our locations and we've actually put them into categories. And I'll walk you through that in a second on how much design there is. But one thing, Sean and I were talking about is just growing international and keeping what's special about your brand. So, we work with franchise partners that have developed in their areas before. We'll source all of the materials locally, and then we will train up some graffiti artists in the area so that you still have the same experience no matter where you're going. So it's really important for us that if you're in Dubai or you're in, Saudi Arabia or you're in London or Canada or in Chicago, that you're having that same experience. And one thing for us at Dave's that we do is that every location is different. We'll have all of the same, there's some things that are static, like our furniture and maybe our wainscoting or tile materials and things like that. But our real personality comes out in the artwork. And so each location, while it's not exactly like the other one, that when you go into a Dave's, you're feeling that same experience. And one of our founders actually kind of described it to me in a really cool way, is that, every single location is like a sibling of the other, but they're not identical twins. So it's kind of a fun way to think about it where you can keep, transitioning from location to location while continuing the designs. This is our London location that we did that's like really close to Piccadilly Square. So we're playing off of, some of the, angles and things that you might see in downtown Piccadilly. But we went into a historical building and we still, actually this one's kind of funny. We didn't ask for permission. We just painted it and
Sometimes that's the best way.
Now you get it. One thing about Dave's, you said it, we started in a parking lot. We are probably one of the more scrappy brands out there. I feel very lucky that I don't have to be really rigid in how we design stuff, but we have, a really cool way of, showcasing our personalities in every location. All right, so one thing that we've done here, and I kind of was touching on this a little bit earlier, is we've done a cheeky little way of designing our sites, and we've put every location that we've designed into a category, and we've done it based off of our spice levels. So now we understand, this would be what we would consider mild, which is like a location where you might only have like exterior signage and maybe some like patio furniture. So it's, obviously it's still a Dave's location. We're really happy that it opened, but there's nothing super special about that exterior. That would be our mild. This is when you would start looking at like a medium location. This would be like you'd have exterior signage. We might do some red rope lights. You have all those patio elements that we were talking about. There is some, something that's visually stimulating about looking at this location, but it may not be as cool as some of the other ones that we do. Then we go into the hot territory, which is basically where you would have all the elements that I just said, but then you might have like some graffiti on the exterior, but maybe we didn't get to paint like the base color of the building or something like that. So, there is design, there's something visually stimulating about it, but you never know. Then we have the Reaper, which is we get everything under the sun on these locations. So we're painting the base color of the building, we're painting graffiti on it, or artwork. I don't want to say that word. I got to get it out of my vocabulary. And then you get our signage and all the, patio furniture and all that stuff. These locations are like I would consider them like our flagship sites, beacons. Everyone can see them from a million miles away. And everyone knows that a Dave's is there. And basically what I want to share with you here is that what we've learned based on the number of locations that we've opened is that the less exterior design you have, the lower your AUVs are. So I guess the reason why I wanted to share this with you guys is because I think, obviously we are a shock to the system, but when you have a location that's mild compared to a Reaper, we're seeing like almost 25% increase in sales for that site. So it's a pretty cool message that, I want to just encourage everybody to have those conversations with landlords, no matter what you're doing. I know we're doing graffiti and stuff on ours, but there's a real opportunity to have exterior design, especially when you're going into tenant improvement locations or you're building a ground up, where the more design you have, there's a real potential there for higher sales.
That's great statistics, especially for the design community to see like what are we getting out of this? Right. What drives the difference within each market to decide which version you're going to do? Right. Is it cost? Is it franchisee discretion? Landlord?
Yeah, it's mostly landlords. It's also the cities and getting approval on these designs. We've had some very interesting locations where we've done even like votes on Instagram to get approval for like locations in like Washington. We have our site in Salem, Oregon, that the city was like, we gotta see if the local community actually wants to approve this. And we went out to vote, and there was like 500 people that said yes. And next thing you know, we have one of our most spectacular buildings. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of art commissions and things like that. We talk to cities often. Like we have PowerPoint presentations where we go and talk to, city council members and stuff like that. And sometimes they say no, but a lot of times they understand that this is going to drive business, it's going to drive jobs, it's going to create some, interaction with a lot of the local community. And we've been pretty successful in it. Mm-hmm. When you're going into certain places like maybe like a Irvine or maybe places in Phoenix, we might not be able to get everything, but if you don't ask, you definitely don't get it.
Give Phoenix a shot. I want to actually hand it off to Jim. I want to make sure we have enough time because, Brinker has really done remarkable things over the past several years in terms of just growth in the casual dining segment. And it's work that Jim should be very proud of, and I'm sure he is. So I wanted to share it with the group here. So if you don't mind queuing up your...
Yeah, so I mentioned that both the brands are kind of going through a rejuvenation right now. So we're going through a kind of an evolutionary redesign. More so on the Maggiano side than the chili side, although we're still going through that on the chili side too. Like I said, we go through it about every 10 years. I'd agree with what Tiffany says. All things being equal, your exterior branding or level that you get is critically important, particularly on the Maggiano side. What we'll do, I'll show you the prototype design that we worked up, but we often go into second generation space or existing space. And getting that branding, particularly in an urban environment, is really difficult sometimes, but critical to what you're trying to do as far as visibility and awareness and stuff. I'll show you a little bit about the change that Maggiano's has gone through. I think everybody's familiar with Maggiano's. It was set as a kind of a New York Little Italy from the 40s, right? And so it's really kind of elevated itself almost to fine dining. We've got a new president that's been on board and a great visionary. We're not using AI for design. This is a fly through that obviously was created for us, right? So we worked with the Johnson Studio out of Atlanta on this design and our in-house creative to pull this all together. And then they went off, I think, offshore to actually get this produced. Yeah. It's nice. We worked through a couple of different iterations. One of the key factors here, we talked about flexibility. Maggiano's has unique business. It's got three legs to its business stool, right? You got the dining, you got off-premise, but you also have banquet. So it was really critical to be able to take that banquet space, which a lot of the time sits empty, make it useful for us, particularly on our dining side. So you'll notice that there's walls that open up, right? So this banquet area can be used as flex dining on a busy Saturday or Friday night when the restaurant's full and you don't have a banquet going on. The banquet area here, we've got a pre-function hallway, right? So you go through, you get the drama, you get a different experience, a slightly different experience on the banquet side. But you can see how it's opened up to the dining room here. This is opened up to flex dining. This helps me keep my square footage down, my seat count up, so I can optimize the ability to do as much business as I can. Anyway, so that's it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Kind of the new look and feel, but we take this, distill it into a kit of parts, and we'll put that into existing space as well. So we have to be creative and flexible there too.
Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. We can ask the other panelists in terms of restaurant design and what are you experimenting with, and especially Abe. I mean, you could even touch on it. We've all gone to the sessions of ghost kitchens, and thinking of just back of house, but you have a front of house. So why don't you talk us through what you're doing there?
Yeah. So we've been building at a pretty quick clip, and so I'll be frank. A lot of our focus has been on the front of house. I mean, excuse me, on the back of house, but our front of house is kind of what we've been focusing on this year. And so we want to make our spaces available to customers in kind of any way they want to dine. So they want to dine on prem, great, we're ready for you. You want to get delivery, fantastic. You want to pick up, fantastic. And so we've been essentially going through each aspect of the front of house and improving it. And so, our unit 1 compared to our unit that just opened, it's a much more comfortable front of house. We've definitely added material to it that makes it feel good. And then we've decided, in some parts of we're kind of building in a lot of suburbs compared to urban. And so in our suburb locations, we've been building a lot bigger front of houses because we found that consumer is more interested in actually eating on-prem as compared to kind of some of our urban sites that are more kind of grab and go.
Well, we don't have much time left, but I do always like to end with looking into the crystal ball of optimism. And I'll just go down the line and how are we feeling about the industry over the next 12 months?
I mean, we're really bullish on it. I mean, I really think that out of a lot of the categories around, I mean, I'm not saying that there may not be kind of frequency compression or anything like that, but I think what we've seen post-pandemic is that gathering and sharing food and being together is integral to our overall societal health. So we're really bullish on it. I mean, these are kind of uncertain times and things like that, but it doesn't you know, we're in the long game here, so we'll navigate it. We'll keep a steady hand on the tiller, and we're very, very bullish on. We understand who we are as a brand and what's you know, what's our DNA, and we'll stay true to that, and I think we'll be just fine. We'll be just fine. But I mean, it's going to be a little turbulent. The drink cart may not come out on the flight. You know what I'm saying? It might. May not. They may have to hold the drink cart.
That
back
will be
for a
the
bit,
quote
but-
of the session. Thank you.
I like that. I'll be quick, but I couldn't agree more. Like, you know, I wonder, we're obviously extremely bullish on what we're doing. We you know, believe that, like, you know, we bring kind of an incredible brand to our consumers. That doesn't mean there's not going to be some short-term hurdles. That doesn't mean that, you know, we're going to experience some turbulence or, you know, lose a drink cart. But I do think, you know, in the long term, you know, we're going to do great. And, you know, I definitely I don't see our growth and expansion slowing down anytime soon.
You know, obviously, this business isn't for the faint of heart. I will say that, but the reality is that, you know, it's a wild ride, and it's one that you can be really proud to be on. And you know, I'm excited for, you know, Dave's to take the world by storm. There's, you know, a ton of runway, and you know, our team is very excited to take it by, you know, take the world by storm. So, you know, I'm game. Let's go.
Yeah, I would say that our business is very, it's like a wave, right? So if you've been in this business long enough, you've ridden enough troughs, and you realize those suck. So when you're on the crest, we're lucky enough to be on the crest right now, particularly with the Chili's brand. So our AUVs have, over the last 3 years, have gone from 3.8 to 4.5. Our challenge really is how you keep that momentum going. And I think part of the secret is staying in tune with your guests, your customers, and what they need, what they want, and then delivering on that, staying relevant.
Great. Do we have any time for questions? No.
No, we're
No,
over.
we don't. We're done. We're done. That's it.
Yeah,
Okay.
unfortunately.
I want to thank